Like, fuck, who gets to be felt up by J-Lo on the big screen? Like,
Me and Ben Affleck and A-Rod and I don't know what other women. I don't know what other women, but that's not my business.
right. It's not. You can't help but be the chosen one, you know?
I can't help
What
it.
can you
Those are
do?
some golden titties, right? They're famous.
Yeah.
Hey there, this is Pussy Empowered Podcast, and I'm your host, Alyssa Aparicio. I'm equal parts Bronx bitch and mountain witch. I believe that when you untame your pussy, you access your power. As the CEO of Pussy Empowered, I hold space for women to do this with a holistic approach that incorporates mind, body, emotion, and spirit. As an erotic performer and choreographer, I surrender to new heights of embodied, expressed art and performance. On this podcast, I share about my approach to pussy power and interview fellow paradigm-shifting badasses about theirs. Ooh, this is such a fun episode with someone who I fangirled pretty hard before we connected, and maybe even now that we're connected, Jacq the Stripper. She has made a career of being out as a stripper, an illustrator, a comedian. She was a consultant on Hustlers, the movie. And she has a lot of fun stories from that experience, along with insight that she's gained over her journey. I think you're going to really enjoy this episode. Listen in.
Hi.
Hey!
Hello. I'm so happy you're here.
I'm so happy to be here too. I love all of your colors.
Yes. Actually, what's really interesting is you did an illustration of me that like last year, and
I
you did it with
remember.
pink hair.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a foreshadowing because I wasn't even thinking about having pink hair at that point, and now I do. Well, this is a filter, so it's amplified pink, but it's also pink underneath the filter. So
I love that.
your witchy
You can do
powers
filters
foreshadowed
on
it.
live?
You
What?
can. Yeah, I think
Wow.
you can
What
even
can I
actually
look
do it
like?
while you're live.
Let's look cute or
Yeah.
whatever. I just came from swimming in the lake, so I'm cute
Oh my gosh.
anyway.
That sounds amazing.
Is this cute?
That
This is
sounds
cute.
so good.
Yeah,
It is
right. Okay.
cute. It's very summery.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was just saying before you hopped on that yesterday was actually the 1 year anniversary of this podcast, Pussy and Power Podcast, beginning. And when I started it, I had a list of people who I would love to have on it, and you were on that list. And so it's like such a cool way to get to celebrate the year anniversary. And so happy that you're taking the time to be here with us. And I'm gonna try to not like sound like a fangirl, even though I kind of am.
Well, fangirl a little bit because it feels good for me too.
Okay, good. I was actually gonna wear
Congratulations.
your merch. Thank you so much. It's
Yeah,
been
that's
really
huge. A whole
fun.
year. That's commitment. You did it.
Yes, and it's been so fulfilling and so much fun to get to talk to people like you who do such badass shit in the world, and you've been a really big inspiration for me. So I'm gonna intro you in officially.
Yes.
So this
Please.
is Jacq the Stripper, and she is a comedian, artist, illustrator. Well, that's under artist too. Author. I have your Striptastic book on my coffee table. How to not be a dick in the strip club. That's the official title, right?
How to not be a dick in a strip club. Yeah.
Yes, very, very important. Very important work. The Beaver Show, the Inquisitive Stripper. You
Yeah.
do merch. You've been a consultant, a stripper
Mhm.
consultant. I don't know if that's the actual official title, consultant for the
Yeah.
stripping roles in Hustlers, the movie, which is so cool. And and now you're a retired stripper and mostly working on your art,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
Which is really, really inspiring to watch that progression and see all the avenues that you've taken. So you're just really dope. And when I was like thinking about stripping, I came across your book and your work, and it really just blew the lid off of what my perceptions were around stripping. Like it was kind of just something that nobody was talking about, and not in a way that was, I don't know, there was the way that you brought in feminist theory and feminism into the conversation. Like I just wasn't hearing that before I saw you do it. So
Fuck
I was
yeah.
really inspired by that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Stripping was such a wild journey for me. I'm so grateful I walked into the club, and because I was a shitty feminist. I'm sure I still am a shitty feminist some days. You know, we're all constantly growing, but my perceptions of what a strip club and a stripper's experience was going to be like was unsavory. And then I did it and I was like, well, there are plenty of unsavory moments, but generally this job is better than any other job I've had.
Yes, really though. Yeah, so that was what struck me too, because I feel like the way that you just said, you said a bad feminist. Is that the words you used?
I think I said
You just
shitty
said it a second
feminist.
ago. Shitty feminist. But I feel I really relate to that. So I only took a couple women's studies classes in college,
Me
but
too.
I felt like I just felt like I was being slut shamed. I don't know how to say it. Like I just didn't feel like I felt empowered and like I'm all about empowerment, but I felt like in that space there was just this weirdness around sexuality. And so I think that, there was, and I think this kind of wave that we're in right now in feminism is really addressing that whole slut shaming paradigm that was kind of the previous wave, right? That like
Yeah.
there was so much horophobia, and even in a lot of the canon, like in Audre Lorde's work, there is still horophobia, and it's changing. I think, I hope, I feel like I want to be a part of the conversation where that change is happening. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I don't know if that's not really a question, but it's to say, like, I guess, what was that experience like for you of having studied some women's studies and then taking it into the club and then really putting your own interpretation and spin and understanding of it out into the world?
Yeah. So I almost failed my intro to women's studies class in summer school in university. Cause like I like failed a lot in my first year of university because I was too busy getting drunk and like learning about my sexual power. So I was getting the real women's studies degree out on the streets of Montreal.
Yes.
And I wasn't a stripper yet. I was just like, being a slut. And then I took women's studies class and I was just like, what the fuck is this? Like I'm sure I would sit there and really take it on. But I was 18 and I was like, what also I just critical thinking was a newer concept for me, and everything was so heady and wordy, and everybody was talking in this elaborate language that I did not connect to, and I felt like feminism was this sort of elitist, what we call the ivory tower of like this place of privilege where you sit and like circle jerk each other off with how smart you are. And I was like, this is feminism? I don't know if I want it. And then, and like academia is interesting, right? Because there's so many cool ideas that come from it, but it's also like a bunch of bullshit of wealthy people who can afford to study. So you gotta like hold that paradox and take what you will. And like I finished my degree in Russian literature. I haven't even touched a Russian book since I graduated. I was like tapped the fuck out after the end of that. And then I became a stripper after. It wasn't like a big feminist act for me to become a stripper. I was just out of money. So I did it. And then I really think it's interesting how like commerce, capitalism, all of these concepts and feminism all intersect with each other or fail to intersect, and like how we're all living a lie of thinking we're fucking ethical people when we're all just like sucking the dick of capitalism every fucking day, and we're trying to figure out how we can suck the dick of capitalism on our own terms. And it's complicated and it's always changing, and my feminism changes every day. And isn't that exciting? It's so boring when you think you have like these fixed ideas. Like then we should just die. There's nothing left to learn.
Before we continue this conversation, here's a quick heads up about Pussy Empowered the Movement, a virtual membership program that meets weekly and provides a playground for self-discovery, liberated embodiment, and unapologetic expression. Join a community of badasses like yourself who are crafting a path of our own and living life on our own terms. To learn more, visit pussyempowered.com/join the movement.
Right. I really resonate with everything you just said so much. And that's what I loved about coming to your work too, because you had so much humor in it, and like you were facing the facts of, I mean, this is, this is the paradigm that we're in, consumerism and
Yeah.
capitalism. And it's like, why shouldn't we capitalize on the raw materials of our body if it's being capitalized upon already? Like, why the fuck wouldn't we take agency over it if we want to, if that's what we feel called to do? Or if that, I mean, a lot of, there's like, I come to it from a place of privilege, and I
Hmm.
know that there's a lot of people who don't come to this work from a place of privilege. But I think telling a woman that capitalizing on the raw material of her body is not feminine, I mean, come on, like that's
I mean, that's patriarchy being a cheap trick. They don't want you
mm,
to know that all you have to do is show someone your pussy, and then your rent gets paid, and then you don't have to work for minimum wage. Like, they don't want you to know there's a huge loophole in patriarchal capitalism. They don't want you
a
to know. And
huge
that's where homophobia
loophole.
comes from. Huge. It's not even a
Mm.
huge loophole. It's just like, it's a
Yes,
loophole. It's a loophole.
it's a loophole. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Me and my friend were laughing so much about, eating pussy is your civic duty. That one illustration that you did, just like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know, that just popped into my head when we're talking about holes.
I
My
think
favorite
that was
topic.
inspired. I think that piece was inspired by the L Word. Did you watch the L Word? The
I
old L
didn't
Word?
actually.
Oh my God.
No.
Okay. Well, I always say the L Word made me gay because it did, and that and like Coyote Ugly. Um,
Mm,
but yeah, there was some sort of like art in the L Word that like kind of introduced me to feminist art through watching the L Word, because like one of the characters is like an art curator, and there was some sort of
mm,
like, anyway, I don't even know. I'm just like, I like to cite my inspirational sources because I just never used to, and I think it's like part of the story of like where we get our ideas. But yeah, eating
mm,
pussy, yeah, that is your civic duty.
absolutely. I cannot agree more. Um, so can you tell us a little bit about your journey of um, becoming a stripper? I know at this point you're past your stripping career, but it's still a part of you, right? Like
I'm
it'll
still
always be a
selling
part
my
of you.
ass. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm not supposed to sell my ass. I'm literally painting my ass and my titties and selling it. So it's like it's just a new iteration of what I've always done, which is like made money off of being myself. So
Mm,
my journey into stripping, I was in Australia, I was traveling, and I was just out of money. Australia is expensive. I was bartending there, but people don't tip in Australia. And Montreal is one of the most generous cities in the world for tipping. So I got
mm,
there and I was like, what the fuck is this 10-cent tip on a drink? This is some bullshit. So I just like decided to fuck it. I became a stripper because nobody would find out. And 12 years later, I think everybody found out. Um, I told them. I beat it over their heads. I've told everyone many times. So, yeah, I
hmm.
just kind of walked into it like a lot of young women who need money walk into stripping. You are on your ass and you're tired of this shit, and you're like, fuck it, I'm going to do it. And I was so far away from home that I felt like I had enough privacy to make that decision. And it changed my whole life. It was just like, so interesting. I thought it was good. I thought I was walking into hell. This is like, I really was like, oh my God, everyone's going to be high. Everyone's going to like have knives in their pockets. Every man is a sexual predator. First of all, every man is a sexual predator. At least there's bouncers. Like there's just so many ways that you think a strip club is some sort of alternate hell, when really you don't realize that we're living in a kind of hell under patriarchal capitalism. And this is the place where you get to go and fucking put your hand out and say, thank you, pay me.
Mm.
So that happened, and then like it was so empowering because I was like meeting all these girls in the club who were like, yeah, I just got back from like this town, this city, this country, this is the club where I worked, this is the kind of money you make, these are the rules. And it's just like this whole network in the dressing room of all over the world. And like all these girls were like, yeah, I danced in New York. And I was like, they're like, yeah. And there's clubs where you don't need papers. Cause like I'm Canadian. I didn't have papers at the time. Like I was working as an undocumented dancer for a long time, which is another level of stress. But like, yeah, you can just sort of go anywhere. And I just sort of listened to the whispers of the dressing room and traveled the world shaking my ass and wouldn't do it any other way.
Right.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
all of this stuff, I think like stripping really inspired me to share, because I was always a writer and I was always an artist. But it was when I started writing about stripping and making art about stripping that people started paying attention. And I love attention. So I was like, all right, people want to hear about this. So I started sharing my story, and I was writing first. Like I had a blog, I had a Tumblr, R.I.P. the Sapphic Stripper. There's probably so much bullshit on there that I'm probably embarrassed is still around, you know, like, but
we all have one of those.
We all have that. Yeah. So there's that. And then I became Jacq the Stripper when I like became an American permanent resident and made art, comics, did stand-up comedy, missed that so much, but taking a break from it. And it's just become whatever I want to do, I can do. And stripping, I guess I've always been pretty confident, but stripping is like my friend, what is her name on Instagram? Earth to Yo. She has, you know how we all have like 5 Finstas? I'm like, how do I properly cite her? Divine Rights, I think is her Instagram that I should plug here. But she was like, when you're a stripper, you're selling air. Like, you know, she's like, and then later, so it's like, if you learn how to sell air, you can do anything. So I'm just continuing to do anything. You can do anything. You don't have to show up with the confidence to be like, hello, would you like to purchase, would you like to give me money in exchange for this wonderful experience? And people are like, fuck yeah. Take me on a ride. I want to go on the Ferris wheel.
Yeah. Who doesn't want to go on the Ferris wheel? Jacq. Yeah. Yeah, that's super. I see myself in that story a lot, and like reading your story, the Beaver Show, gave me that look inside, and it was like, this actually seems like I could really enjoy this experience, you know. And it was scary beginning, but then, you know, and a lot of the concepts that you shared and the way that you shared them have stuck with me over the years too. It's like, yeah, we walk out in the world in a short skirt, and if we like attention, we're in danger on the street in that space, and in the club there's bouncers. Like it's been such a sexual playground, like a playground of expression, that I've been really grateful for, because it's allowed me to experiment with what it's like to show up in my body in a sexual way, and of course, like the experience of learning boundaries in a club, because nobody teaches you boundaries outside of a club. I don't know why that's not the first conversation we have, but it's
why
like something that
the first conversation we have. You're right.
I don't fucking know. Yeah, it's like then thrown into the ring of the strip club. It's like, I'm learning boundaries real quick here.
Yeah.
Which was really interesting. But yeah, I don't remember where I was going with that, but just the experience of selling air, which I love. it just puts you in a really present place to realize like what sales actually is, energy exchange, and how to navigate that outside of that space. So I love hearing the way that you say how it informs everything else that you do, and why wouldn't it, you know, life experience. So what I've been really inspired in witnessing you, among the many things, obviously I've said inspired many times already, but the fact that you've been public and open about your experiences, it took me a long time to get to a place where I felt comfortable to speak about it. And I kept watching people like you do it so bravely, and just sitting there like, oh my gosh, one day I'm going to be that brave. And, you know, it was last summer when I finally was like, fuck it. I just don't want to, it just felt like this whole area of my life that I couldn't talk about, that was in the shadow. And I was like, but why? I'm proud of it. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
I want to talk about it. And I realized I was like kind of protecting other people. And there was this weird, you know, family and like also there's just this weird force field of like, you know, what could happen if the government knows, or I mean, it's real, but it's also
Taxes.
some of it is imagined. Taxes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get
They're
honest.
simple answers. Right? The fear is like, what happens if they find out? Then they find out, and then what? Like, there are some really real repercussions. Like, you could lose your children and things like that. Like, there are some no joke things, but it's also like, I don't know. Welcome out, girl. It's better.
Thank
The weather's
you.
nice. It's not always nice, but you meet more people when you can express yourself more authentically. I have never met so many like-minded women than I have in like the strip club, or that have related to my art, and then we have become friends, because it's a really vulnerable thing to share something that's stigmatized and to share a part of your sexuality. But the rewards, in my experience, outweigh the risks. Yeah, I like, life is so rich having shared this experience and being met with vulnerability of other totally badass femmes who are paving their own way in their own right, because there's a confidence that comes from having done this work, that it's so cool to see how other women have channeled it into their life after stripping, you know. And a lot of people don't just stop talking about it like it never happened, which I respect, because it's like tedious and the stigma is real. But it's really cool being like hearing what people have used their wiles for to, and like how they've applied it elsewhere. So many success stories that I can't even share here because of stigma. Like, this is why we have so far to go.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's there.
Yeah.
It's there. It's just like we're increasingly able to talk about it.
Yeah. If it wasn't for people paving the way, then I don't know that I would have felt comfortable even at this point. So thank you for being one of those people. And
you're so welcome. It's my pleasure. I love being the first hot mess. I love it.
Emphasis on the hot.
I love it. I'm like, I will. Yeah. I had my chart reading with Channy Nicholas, an icon, right? She gave me my birth chart reading a couple months ago, and she said, you always have to be hurling my Mars is in Aries. She said, you always have to be hurling yourself off of a metaphorical cliff in public. And I was like, yeah, that's right. So like, I get a real thrill out of taking a lot of risks and having an audience watching. So it's in the stars, guys. I'm just doing what I'm meant to be doing, which is also like fucking up a lot and learning a lot of lessons also in public. Like, it's never boring.
Totally. Oh my gosh, I feel you so much on that. Like, there is a major exhibitionist in me, and I mean, everybody knows it.
Well, that's why,
right?
That's why you're a stripper.
Yeah.
You're like, look at me go. Like, watch me be amazing, but also like, watch me eat shit right now, and then watch me gracefully recover, because that's what strippers do. Fall over all the time. And I had the best lesson. She's like, just turn it into a move. Also, that's like the dance move. It's like, if you fall, just turn it into a move with your hair. And like, that's it. That's how you recover. Yeah. Take the lesson with you.
Yeah. And even more like outside of the literal like tripping up, but actually the experience of like eating metaphorical shit, like, you know, and when you just have a really off night, or like you just do really shitty, and it's like the resilience of recovering from that in real time, the like level of rejection that sometimes you experience in that space is like pretty damn high. And where
you gotta go home and cry. You have to go home and cry first,
or into the bathroom.
Like a day off, take a week off, and then figure out who you are, and then go back in there.
And then sometimes, I mean, then over time it gets less painful, right? I think sometimes it's just painful, but over time you kind of learn too, like, okay, rejection, here's another rejection, cool, all right, I'm gonna go back on the floor and continue to dance naked and vulnerably and have awkward, ridiculous conversations anyway. Yeah. So I would love to know, like, what has your experience? I know I heard you on another podcast. I believe it was gosh, now I'm blanking on what podcast it was that I heard you on, but you were talking about how your experience of being so out in public as a stripper has actually or became a problem at some point to some clubs. And
Yeah, I had to
that's
retire.
really, it's insane.
I mean,
That's
it's
so
like, look,
fucking
I could
insane.
have owned it. I could have been like, yeah, I'm Jacq the Stripper, pay me. But it's not, but that's my boundary. Like, it wasn't fun for me anymore. It wasn't my fantasy. Like, because it's
Mm,
like, I'm also a sexual being with my own fantasies. And that, like, and that's what I show up to the club with. Like, it's also my kink that I'm sharing with you. I'm not just like a fucking like white canvas of like whatever the fuck you want to project onto me. And so stripping stopped being fun when I couldn't be my stripper character anymore. Like when I started being recognized
mm,
as Jacq, because like I feel like this sort of like moral obligation as Jacq the Stripper to be like an upstanding citizen, but like my stripper character was like nasty in the corner and I loved her. But like I couldn't, like they were two different girls and like they just like couldn't be in the same room together. So it sort of forced me
uh,
into retirement, and it was really sad for a long time because it took me a while to come to this conclusion, and there were a ton of really like, and I like, you know, I said some shit on the internet and then I go into a club and I'm like, hire me. They're like, bitch, get out of here. We don't like you. And it's like, fair. I did say some like, you know, critical things about the way you run your business. I understand that you don't want me to work at your business because of like our different opinions. Like, whatever. It was meant to happen. I do miss stripping, but I'm also like so into being a weird art lady in the woods, and I love stand-up comedy more than anything. And it's like, who knows where that slut energy is going to go, but it's going to be epic.
mm,
You know, she's not
yeah.
gone. She's just transforming.
Mm-hmm. Because
Yeah.
that slut energy, once it's open, it's not going back inside any
No,
closets, or they're not
no,
turning the faucet off. It's just here to stay.
no. More faucets. A waterfall is my sexual
Yeah,
appetite.
totally. Oh my gosh, I feel that. It's mm-hmm. Yeah. What
Yeah, other people.
license
Oh, survive the
to
club. Hi, boo. Yeah. Yeah. It sucks when people
yeah.
find out. When you don't want anyone blowing up your spot. Like you're in character, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Anyway.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, there's that difference in between like it was an interesting distinction when nobody knew what I was doing and it was like my little secret, and it felt different. It feels different now that people know, but I actually feel more free too.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just an evolution. It's just
Yeah.
like different feelings,
Yeah.
different experience along the way.
You're evolving.
Yeah. Yes, we're always constantly evolving. So what I would love to just hear, I'm really curious to know what your experience was like consulting for hustlers. Can we talk about that for a second?
Yeah.
How did
It
that go
was
down?
amazing. Yeah. I got an email and they were like, do you want to audition for this movie? And I'm like, yes. Obviously, I want to audition for this
Yeah.
movie. I auditioned for the movie. I meet Lorene Scafaria, the director and writer, who's amazing and such a great ally to sex workers. They offer me the part and they call me and they're like, hi, we also want a consultant on set to make sure everyone's comfortable. Can you also do that? So I got paid for 2 jobs in one day. Talk about like
Fuck
peak
yeah.
moment. And so and it was amazing. Like everybody was so responsive to my notes and respectful and so down to like do a good job at like portraying what they were trying to portray. And
Mm.
that was like, you guys, I'm a comedian. I'm an actress. Like I have been waiting for my opportunity. Like everybody's exit from sex work into something else looks different, but this was my shot and it was a really fucking good shot. Like the fact that this was my first movie, like huge. Like I was
Crazy.
so into it. I'm so proud of it. And
As you should
it's
be.
only inspired me to like lean into like, oh my god, I do want to act more. And I always felt like I was never good enough to be an actress, and like there's so many more pretty people and more talented people that I would just never succeed in that industry. And
Yeah, I know the
Hustlers
noise.
gave me this opportunity to be like, no bitch, you belong here, come teach us. And like Jennifer Lopez is sitting there like touching my boobs and being like, what would I say in a situation like this? And I was like, and I'm like doing my job, getting paid to be felt up by Jennifer Lopez, as you do. And and then like it was amazing, and it was like just being on this huge operation of like making movies, and whatever you want to do after stripping, whatever that is, if you're watching, like the opportunities are going to come to you, and you got to take them. You have to take them, because I thought stripping was going to be forever, and like I wanted it to be. And like, look, stripping in my heart is forever, but like whatever comes up to you, you have to take it. And like, look, there's a ton of criticism about hustlers too, and totally valid criticism. And it was really hard navigating that, because it was like a big break for my career, and also like the biggest drag and traumatizing experience as an Instagram person I've ever experienced in my life. So it was like, just like I'm saying, it was high, it was low, but you know, not everyone's always going to like the choices that you make for yourself. But I'm so glad I did that movie. It was so fun. Lorene is so cool. I want to work with her again. I want to work with everyone again. I was hanging out with Lizzo in like the scene, who I had tickets to her show the following week. I was like, just so you know, I'm a super fan. I'm going to your show next week. And like, we're like sitting in the scene, and she's like putting her flute in my boobs. Like, it was amazing.
Amazing.
Obviously
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It looked amazing. I'm so happy to know that behind the scenes it felt amazing too. That is such a huge, yeah, it's such a huge accomplishment. Like, fuck, who gets to be felt up by J-Lo on the big screen? Like
me and Ben Affleck and A-Rod, and I don't know what other women. But that's not my business. Right.
It's not you. You can't help but be the chosen one, you know?
I can't help it.
What can you do?
There's some golden titties, right? They're famous.
Yes.
They've been felt up by so many people. Oh my God. Wasn't always great, but that was a good one. She was gentle.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm just imagining J-Lo touching my tits right now. She touched this hand, because I'm a J-Lo super fan, and she touched this hand, but that's not my tits. It's like a whole different story.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. But we're connected through Jennifer Lopez.
Yeah, her you know, whatever, her germs have been on us.
No germs. Shit.
So blessed.
I didn't prepare. Okay. Sorry, I'm just moving location.
Okay, yeah, that's all good. So, I mean, we talked about a lot of cool shit. I would love to know, like, what you're up to right now. I know you're doing watercolor and painting. What is on the horizon for you? What are you most passionate about right now? Like, how can we support you? We support your work and you in general?
You can support me on Patreon. I would love to see you on Patreon. It is so hard to get people to vibe on Patreon. It's a cool platform though, because you get to just like throw a couple, it's like tipping me on the regular. I would love that. My Patreon is Jacq Frances, and that's where I show my art. So I'm doing a lot of digital collage of like porn and like housewife imagery, because I can't tell too much about that part of my life yet, but I'm working on some projects that are really personal, and I'm not ready to share with the world, because usually I'm kind of like an artist who came up with Instagram. So I was like, as soon as I share it, I can't press share fast enough. Like, I'm really trigger happy with that, and I'm growing from that. I'm 34 years old. I'm learning that sometimes it's good to sit on things. So I'm sitting on that, and I'm doing some large scale paintings. Here, this one behind me. See that?
Ooh.
This is one of my paintings. It's big. It's like 3.5 by 5 feet. It's big. So I'm gonna have a show in the fall in New York, and then I'm gonna finance my first film. I'm making a movie about Brian. So
oh my gosh, Brian, your alter ego character that you play, right?
Yeah. So I'm making a movie. So I'm doing a lot, but it's like I feel I've been very grateful for Instagram, but it's so limiting. It's such a small square. It's like a 2 by 2 inch square, and my world is so much bigger than that now. So I'm just sort of like throwing my weight around and seeing what happens. And I don't know what's gonna happen, but I'm just like really focusing on enjoying my life. I went swimming today. I got my nails done. Look at this marble.
Oh, hey.
Manicure.
Oh, cool. I love it.
And yeah, I'm just, you know what? I saved a bunch of money from being a stripper. And it's like, what the fuck is that money for? It's to enjoy your life. So I'm just like enjoying my life right now, and I'm not working so hard. I'm working on like myself, like capital S self-improvement, going to therapy, reading books, working on all of my trauma, because I don't know about y'all, but I am a people pleaser. And being a stripper is a huge part of this, because you don't say what you mean, you just say what you think people want to hear. And a lot of my relationships start feeling like stripper relationships with clients, because you're just so used to making the client happy that you don't actually know what you want. And there are some serious setbacks from living that way. So I'm like unlearning all this like conditioning I used to survive, but I'm like, I don't need to survive like that anymore. So I'm having a huge transformation is the short version of an answer I could talk to for hours. So that's what I'm doing. Yeah,
so many cool things on the horizon, and I love hearing you say that, you know, like it's just not often enough that I get to hear women say, like, I am, you know, doing all of these amazing things with the money that I saved, and getting to be in my passion and live my art, and see where it takes me is just so fucking refreshing to hear. I want that for everyone, you know? So thank you for sharing where you're at on your journey with that and letting us know how we can support you. And you're so right about Instagram being so limiting, especially when it comes to sexuality and
it's
blah,
cool.
blah, blah,
It's
blah.
not nothing. It's like we can hate Instagram, but it's how we all found each other, right? So it's like, it's not a total piece of shit, but it is a turd, you know. Like there's like a big turd on it, and like there's like, it's not everything. Like not everything we do has to be shared on this platform. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you just so much for giving us your time and energy and effervescence and sharing part of your story. I highly recommend y'all tune in to Jacq the Stripper's Instagram, and beyond that, really go into Patreon and be a supporter. And,
come on Patreon. You can see pictures of my fun parts. You can look at my naughty artwork. I will answer your DMs on Patreon. Don't do that on Instagram. So if you want to talk to me, pay me $2 a month. It's like
because you give so much.
Because I wouldn't do that in the club.
And you need to give so much. It's like people expect free content at this point, but let's stop that. Like, support artists and support people who are doing cool shit, so that, you know, that's the avenue we want to pour into, so that we can grow those avenues and have more freedom. So let's support. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us.
Thank you for having me, and congratulations on a year of podcasting. That's huge. It's a huge commitment. You're obviously loving it, so keep doing it.
I'm loving it so much.
Thanks for being so sensual and radiant. You are exactly that.
Thank you for seeing me. I appreciate you. Mwah, mwah, mwah.
Okay, so I'd love to hear your takeaways on this episode. Please feel free to reach out with feedback at sensual_radiance. Or email me at sensual.radiance@gmail.com. And I know you want to follow Jacq the Stripper and support her on Patreon and her art and all that good stuff. So check out the show notes where you can see it there. And her Instagram is at Jacq, JACQ, The Stripper. If you want to know more about my Pussy Empowered offerings, please tap into pussyempowered.com, where you will see the link to my latest performance class that's happening in real life in Los Angeles, and also my virtual offerings. Thank you so much for tuning in. Share with a friend, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. It really all adds up, and I really appreciate the support on this journey. Thank you. Until next time.